and call the meeting to order. I apologize for being a little bit late. We're waiting for two individuals and I was thinking maybe they're stuck in traffic, but either way, we're gonna move forward. Meeting to order. It is now 6:10. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting, those of you who are participating in the Board of Education meeting in person and those that are watching the meeting via live streaming on YouTube. We would ask that if anybody is going to address the board, that you use the microphone at the podium and to please identify yourselves for the record. As a reminder, the link to the meeting is on the district webpage under the Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting. In event there is a disruption in the stream, I will pause the meeting until it is reestablished. We do have an excused absence from Mr. Smith tonight. He will not be attending our meeting. Dr. Kettler, would you please announce the meeting for us?
This meeting has been announced in accordance with the open meetings resolution and is a legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas School Board of Education.
Thank you, Dr. Kettler. Do I have Andre here? All right, come on forward, Andre. Dr. Kettler, I'll turn it over to you while you read his bio.
Thank you, Madam President.
You can stand right here and face that way, sir.
Pleased to recognize sixth grader Andre Souza as our pledge leader this week. Except for attending local digital academy at the height of COVID, Andre has been a HEE Tiger since pre-K. As a sixth grader, Andre's favorite subjects are math and science. He likes understanding how numbers in the real world work. This year, Andre has joined the Tiger Band and is learning how to play the saxophone. When not at school, Andre enjoys playing baseball and practicing jiu-jitsu. He has been playing baseball since his first aluminum bat at age 2. This year, he moved up to the 13 under team as a 12-year-old and is looking forward to the challenge of keeping his .580 batting average with faster pitches in the new age group. He plays catcher and third base when he's not hitting the ball. Catching is his favorite. Andre is an only child and the first in his family born in the United States. He traveled to Brazil with his parents to visit his extended family this past summer and enjoyed seeing the family farm with all the animals. Andre graduated from high school. He hopes to attend Florida State University to study biology while playing baseball. His long-term goal is to play baseball for the New York Yankees. For now, Andre is happy at KGE and says he really likes it. The teachers are extremely nice and do a great job teaching him all he needs to learn. Thank you, Andre, for being a great example of our Aurora's characteristics. We're so proud of you. Please rise and join Andre and I in saying the pledge of allegiance.
Thank you. Andre, good job.
Superintendent always says the fifth.
You went for the good stuff.
That'll hold you over till Halloween, right?
We'll move to item 4 on the agenda. Thank you, Andre. Okay, now we'll move to item 4, approval of the agenda. Dr. Kettler, are there any changes or deletions to the agenda?
Madam President, the only potential change would be our student rep is not currently here with us this evening. And I'd like to give him the opportunity to present what he's prepared. So since we're about 15 minutes since meeting should have started, I probably would recommend we move him to the next board meeting. So we can hear from him.
I know we did try to reach out to find the student representative to give him an opportunity to come. I didn't want him to walk in late and then tell him he could go home. But at the same time, if we're not going to hear from him tonight, I think we should move it from the agenda. And then, of course, we could put him on the next meeting.
Next meeting or the next meeting that Century High School.
Okay. All right. So then with that, I have I need a motion if we're going to remove item A from the superintendent's report as per the recommendation of the superintendent.
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda with removing item A from it.
8A.
Madam President,
Yes.
before we have a second on that, I would like to withdraw item E 3900 till the next meeting, till we're all here on that policy. And that's the one, Dr. Keller, that's the one we're talking about. I got the right number.
That's correct.
Okay.
Which one?
So you're talking about
On 10A.
10AI.
10AI E 3900.
Kettler, is there going to be language proposed on 3900?
There is some language that has been worked on by council specific to the copyright compliance policy, which is E 3900. Mr. Smith is not with us tonight, and I know he had some thoughts on the copyright policy. And so I believe having that reading tonight would be okay, but no vote for approval until
The next meeting? So, Mr. Hidon, I'll allow
Fine with that.
but I thought maybe we could keep it on discussion and just not push it to a vote.
That's fine.
Okay. So we're gonna leave item 10AI on the agenda, but make it for discussion only. And we won't vote on that item tonight, but we can continue with the other items that are possibly up for action. Okay. Okay. Any other proposed changes? Okay, so not hearing any, we're going to be, the motion by Mr. Bennett will stand with 8A being removed from the agenda until a later date. Can I get a second?
Second.
I got a motion by Mr. Bennett, a second by Mr. Vickers. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Hidon,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. and me, yes. Motion passes, agenda is approved, and we're going to move forward. Dr. Keller, has there been any requests for public comment?
no, President, we do not have public comment.
That moves us to the consent items. Gentlemen, the consent sheet has been reviewed by all board members. I need a motion on the consent sheet.
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent items.
I got a motion by Mr. Bennett to approve the consent items. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Vickers. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm going to call for the vote. Mr. Hidon,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. All consent items are approved. So that brings us to item 8 on the agenda, which is the superintendent's report. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Kettler. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, at this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Terry Goff to the podium Ms. Goff is the principal at Catherine Gallegos Elementary.
Right, Madam President, members of Wilsona School Board of Education, Superintendent Dr. Kettler, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak about Catherine Gallegos Elementary. Before we start, I'd like to introduce my brand new assistant principal, Catherine Trujillo. This is her 6th day on the job. And a shout out to my staff in the audience that is here supporting. Without them, there is no way anything that you're about to see tonight would happen. They are what makes KG the place to be. So at KG, we do everything that we can to ensure all students have access to a complete curriculum at that grade level. Our job as the adults is to thoroughly plan for this instruction, and we do this through our weekly professional learning community meetings. We have grade level meetings on Tuesdays and a school-wide PLC on Thursdays. During that time, we look at lesson plans and lessons. We plan our weekly lessons, and as administrators, Mrs. Trujillo and I are able to see that in the walkthroughs that we do in the classrooms. Last year, Catherine Gallegos, along with Ann Parrish Elementary, piloted inclusion. What that means and what that looks like for our students is that students with IEPs are no longer pulled out of the classroom to go to a resource room. The special ed teacher joins the general education teacher in the classroom to provide instruction. And that can look a couple of different ways. We've had some coaching with the University of Indiana, helping guide us through the experience for our students. And it can be something as simple as one adult teaches, one observes, one teaches and one assists. Side-by-side teaching, which is 2 teachers teaching the same lesson at the same time to different groups of students in the classroom. Or that's parallel teaching, not side-by-side teaching. That's parallel teaching when they're teaching parallel to each other, the same lesson at the same time to different students. Or side-by-side teaching, where the 2 teachers are standing up and kind of bouncing ideas off of each other. It can be scripted, where I say this and you say that, or a more organic feeling, where if I have an idea to provide lessons to the students or ideas or strategies, then I can just jump in and kind of share that with them. We've had multiple professional developments on our site. We've been looking at Universal Design for Learning, which is UDL. UDL allows us tools and applications that makes learning accessible to all students, all learners, teachers included. An example of a UDL tool would be speech to text or text to speech. And that's available on all students' iPads, and I probably use that a lot more than I should. I just got to make sure to go back and check that autocorrect, so I say what I actually mean to say. We've had some technology PD, and that's been offered to us by the district digital learning coaches, our Apple specialists, and our site techies. And they've been able to bring merge cubes to us, which allows students to almost kind of hold objects in their hand. The picture's not great, but what you see is a picture of a heart, and you can zoom into the different parts of the heart and see what the different ventricles do, what the arteries do, and you can spin it so you can see that from all sides. We've also been introduced to Freeform, which is on all the students' apps, all the students' iPads this year, and it just gives them a way to kind of create a portfolio. They have student writing, student research, students created a book, the teacher created a rubric and graded them, and it was an entire portfolio that students were able to share with parents at parent-teacher conferences this year. For learning in other languages, we do the pledge in English and Spanish. And Andre asked me before I start, do I do the pledge in Spanish too? No, just in English today. But in the morning, we do it in English and Spanish. We have the Time Kettle earbud translators, which look like just little AirPods. And for somebody who is fluent in English and somebody who's fluent in Spanish, you would each wear an earbud, and through an app, it'll translate in real time. So everybody can speak in the language that's most comfortable to them. We do have some kinder students who have a home language other than English, German, Spanish, and Tiwa. And the students are teaching their peers their numbers in their home language, as well as some animal names. Our data story, our data looks really good. So the blue that you're seeing, the light blue and the dark blue are proficient students and advanced students on the state summative assessment that we took last April. And while we are very excited about the incredible hard work that our teachers do, and they do amazing things, we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. So if we're spending the time planning, teaching, and working toward ensuring grade level content, we want it reflected in this data as well. We are in the business of growing kids, and although these are great percentages, we won't stop working until our students are becoming more proficient. Have learned about so many different future opportunities and what you can be when you grow up. Through Beable, which is an online reading program, it allows students to read high interest articles at their reading level. But before they do that, they take an interest survey to find out, what do you like? And what you're seeing on the screen now is our students at KGE want to be artists when they grow up. That's what the A stands for. They're artistic, they're social, which I'm sure my teachers can agree that they're very social, and they're enterprising. The graph that you see on the screen is some of the jobs that they want when they grow up. They want to be actors, they want to be musicians, they want to be video editors, they want to be makeup artists. And what's nice about knowing this about our student population is we just got an art teacher this year. So we have a music teacher and an art teacher. So now they're able to experience twice the art that was available to them last year. We also bring in guest speakers. You do see a cow on the screen. We walked out on the field one day last year and there was a cow on our field from the Demolition Cattle Company. We've also had balloon pilots, hot air balloon pilots on our campus, Air Force pilots, and many other presentations for our students. And finally, we have student mentors. We have high school students that come to our campus for an hour a day to interact and support students. And they get to see, one of our mentors is in JROTC. So they get to see him come in his uniform once a week and then ask questions about not only what they can do beyond high school, but some of the opportunities available to them even during school. We want the academics because that's incredibly important, but we also want to make sure that we are meeting kids at their cognitive, social, and emotional development. Every month, we have an assembly that honors our students of the month, and that goes to our ROARS criteria, being respectful, organized, accountable, responsible, and safe. Tomorrow afternoon will be our second monthly assembly where we recognize those students who meet the organized criteria. We also have our sensory room, which is a hit with students and staff. Sometimes I want to go in there and hide and kind of regroup. It's a very special place. And it got a lot of use a couple weeks ago. So unfortunately, last month we did lose our counselor, Miss Sunny Stone. And most of us hadn't had to deal with something like that before. So through journaling with our older students and some art for our younger students, we've been able to come together as a school community and create a tribute to Miss Sunny, that if you come by our building, you'll still see up. We've got hot air balloons that the kids colored and created, and the adults as well, and wrote on, just as a way to express their feelings in dealing with our loss. We want to continue to grow and get better at what we do. Everybody has room to grow in our practice. So we've brought in some additional professional development. We had district coaches who join us regularly for PLC days. We had Dual Language of New Mexico in for number talks. They were actually just here today, and they'll be back next week and again in November. And we had Amplify coaches on site last year to help support our ELA curriculum. We also have the Educator Fellows program is very strong in our building. We have 5 young ladies who are currently attending school, but they're in our building full-time as well, getting a complete, total, all-around hands-on experience on what it's going to be like to be a teacher, so that one day when we have teacher openings at KGE, we can just move them right into a classroom. Family engagement is huge at KGE. We had parent-teacher conferences last month, and we had 88% attendance, with many classes having 100% attendance for their conferences. We have family nights once a month, every other month or so. In September, we had a math and tech night. We had over 120 students and their families who attended. And later this month, on October 26th, we have our fall festival, which, if you've ever been, is very, very well attended and one of the highlights of what we do in the fall at KGE. Communication is important, to communicate with our families. Through the Remind app, we reach over 1,500 parents. I've got, there's a record of 98% of messages on average being delivered, with 45% of them being read. And last week alone, 25 teachers sent messages out to over 700 parents. And then, thanks to Miss Tiffany McMinn, we've got our brand new marquee, which is just a fun, easy way to communicate with parents. And I kind of have kept that job because I like to make the changes. It makes me happy. But it's a good and easy thing for parents to see as they come drop off their students or pick them up.
So with our safety and security at KGE, we do make it a priority to make sure our kids are safe and their overall health and well-being is taken care of. We do have school resource officers and a new campus safety security officer. We watch them patrol the campus throughout the day. We also have really strong positive relationships with our local law enforcement, and we utilize the Stop It app, an anonymous reporting app. And that's something that was rolled out in September, and a great way for not just our students, but for our community to report any concerns.
And while you're looking at our little tigerettes, every football and basketball season, Coach Joni up at the Los Lunas High School does a Tigerettes clinic, and it's very well attended from KGE. I think she said she had 70 dancers and more than half of them were from KGE. So she knows at the end of their performance, yes, Terry, I know you've got to take a picture of your babies. So those are our little Tigerettes. And at this time, we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Scull. All right, Mr. Bennett, I'll start with you.
All righty. For starters, congratulations for becoming the principal this year, and also Mr. Hill's assistant principal this year, because I know we didn't get a chance earlier, but congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
On that co-teaching, you're bringing two classrooms in together at the same time, or is just two teachers in one classroom?
So we have it both ways, actually. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cutler and Mr. Bennett, we have a third grade, two teachers in third grade that have actually combined their classes. So their class is a little bit larger, but at times there are 3 teachers that are teaching together. In most scenarios, it's a general education teacher and a special education teacher, and it's not all day, it's for a specific block of time. And they'll teach math or ELA.
Good. And also, how's the earbuds working? Is it really smooth going, or you get people with,
It's pretty nice. We've only tried it out a couple of times. I've had somebody use it with a student as well as with parents, and it's not quite instant, but it's pretty close.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Vickers.
Well, I was going to mention the co-teaching also, but that's sort of interesting. Are any of the other elementaries doing anything like that you're aware of?
Not yet. So we started it, Mr. Vickers, we started it last year as a pilot school. So what we're doing is we're getting continuous training from the University of Indiana with heavy support from our special services department. And we want to work out some of the bugs and some of the kinks before we go district-wide. But I do believe I'm speaking and saying, it's okay that we're going district-wide eventually. Yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's a great idea to just do different things in different schools, and then if it works out well, you can share it with the other schools and they can adopt it also.
Yes, sir.
On safety and security, what's the difference between a school resource officer and a campus security officer, for one thing?
So, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Keller, Mr. Vickers, I'm going to say what I think it is. And if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me. So, because Mr. Bach is not here, a school resource officer is certified, and that's not the correct word, but they are licensed to carry weapons. And a campus officer, campus school officer is a security officer. So they are not armed.
Okay.
You're getting a nod back there.
Am I getting,
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm looking for affirmation. Are they certified? Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Mr. DeAndre. We didn't catch that on the recording. So I don't know if you want to say it again or if you just want to confirm that.
So I can
Say it.
say what
There you go.
Officer Deanna said. School resource officers are certified and they're licensed and they have the same powers as local law enforcement, LOPD, and the county sheriff. And a campus security officer is just security.
Okay, so my second question, now I've got that straight, is you have all 4 of these officers there every day?
No, so the officers that you saw in the picture, they were Los Lunas PD and they just come in and visit our school and tour our school. In addition to our SRO and our CSO,
Okay, so we have one SRO.
one SRO and
SRO.
one CSO.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
So I saw that picture.
The picture
Like, wow.
was a bit misleading. I apologize.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. You don't go ahead.
Principal Golf, caught my attention in this.
Thank you.
Use some strong language and I like it. Deserves the right to use technology. Opportunity, classrooms, support, and a curriculum. That's what we need to stay focused on. That's strong. That's a good message that you're sending your school and those parents. Parents have to be lucky that this is what you're sending out to them.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Hidon.
And I just want to welcome you to the principalship. I think you're going to do great at Catherine Gagos and I'm really excited for you. And Mr. Hill, welcome. It's a good thing she didn't just throw you in there and tell you do the presentation. She might have tried. If I know this stuff, she might have thought.
There was a conversation about what she was going to present.
Exactly. I want to know who from your staff is in the room and stand up so we can say welcome and thank you for being here. All right. Thank you for being here. My only comment was on the 5 fellows. I've just, since a couple of years that program has started in our district, I'm really excited to see that now we're at your school alone, you have 5. And that, I don't know if there's some on every campus, but I'm assuming that that's a really good experience level for these fellows.
Miss Garcia, it really is because they are there all the time. So in the past, student teaching started with 1 day a week and then 2 days a week and then 5 days a week, but they are there 5 days a week from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. We do allow them time if they have classes in during the school day to leave campus and go to their classes. That's part of what makes an ed fellow an ed fellow, but they are there and they experience everything because there's some things that you do as a teacher that you see in the classroom that can't be replicated in your classroom as you're learning to become a teacher. You've got to have the hands-on experience.
Do they get to pick the school they want to go to, or do they get assigned from administration, or how did you get 5?
I worked with Mr. Seiss in the personnel office.
That's awesome. No, that's great. And I'm just seeing that every year there's more and more. I know we can't exactly strong arm them to come to lots of the schools it works eventually, but I'm hoping that's the goal. And I think that's awesome.
From talking to them day in and day out, they are enjoying what they're doing. And so that to me is a positive thing.
You want to bring them back here?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Great job, Ms. Goff. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right, guys, thank you. All right, Dr. Kettler.
We Brian Vargas doing this, and so I would, if it is appropriate, I would motion, I don't guess that's a motion, but I would recommend that he speaks for me in the other comments, but the superintendent section of the agenda.
We could do it there, or I can ask the board to motion that we accept it back on under 8A. Or if you want to give up your other comments because you don't have other comments, we could do it there too. I think you have other comments. Okay, all right. In addition to, come on up, sir. You are Mr. Vargas. Go to the podium, Mr. Vargas. And before you speak, I'll let Dr. Kettler introduce you, okay? Go ahead, sir.
Brown Vargas, child of Walter Vargas and Lopez. He started with Los Lunas Schools at Danny Fernandez Elementary, then Ann Parish Elementary, followed by Los Lunas Adult High School before making the decision to transfer to CHS of last year. Previous school year at CHS, Brian impressively earned 13 credits spanning fall, spring, and summer. With a promising future ahead, Brian is currently on track to graduate this spring. He wants to become an auto tech mechanic. Brian is taking 2 classes this semester at MEP, including auto tech and business to support his future goals. Brian's impact goes beyond his academic achievements. He consistently inspires his fellow students to stay focused and make wise choices. You'll often find him as the first to lend a helping hand, whether it's opening a door, carrying something heavy, or going out of the way to at school. Brian Vargas is a true centurion who is a beacon of positivity and community spirit at Century.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kettler. I greatly appreciate the opportunity I was given to come out and be able to tell you more about Century High School. I'm here to share you some new things and things going on at our school. On Thursday, September 14th, 2023, we had a new test called Horizons. This was the first year we ever tried it out to see how it was, and we are excited. We are excited that Horizons is like the SATs. We have also had a lot of students enroll, including myself, into 1 or more dual credit classes. These classes have helped many students that were falling behind catch up on their credits so they would be able to graduate in time or even earlier and get their college credits. Also on Tuesday, September 12th and Wednesday, September 13th, we had a parents' night dinner. This brought the families and teachers together by the teachers being able to help out the parents if they had any questions or if they just wanted to get to know each other better. On Thursday, September 14th and Friday, September 15th, we had a parents' breakfast. At Century High School, we also started New Mexico Out of School Time, which is NMOST as abbreviation. This gives students the chance to do some fun activities after school. The activities consist of Dungeons and Dragons, It's Only Fabric, which is a class for sewing and embroidering, Make It and Take It, which we use our innovation lab, and we get to create our own designs. And we are planning to start a new program, which is STEM robotics class. With all of this, the students must be tutored before they can actually do the activities. Okay, have fun. We have also had a big increase in students playing sports at Los Lunas and Valencia. We have students participating in cheer, dance, football, and baseball. Century High School and the district-wide credit recovery classes have reached a grand total of nearly 300 Edgenuity classes that have been completed already in this first semester. Also, one of our outdoor classes got the opportunity to build hornos, aka ovens. It was a cool experience because it showed us teamwork, communication, and skills that we could possibly use out in the future. We plan to have a fall festival for all of our students later this month using this area of campus.
Well, thank you, Mr. Vargas. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. All right. Mr. Bennett.
Yes, sir. Brian, I just want to congratulate you for making that decision to come back and get those 13 credits. I'm sure it's pretty hard for you, but now you're right on track and that's a great thing. And being an auto tech is wonderful. I just spent a grip of cash on getting a tune-up on my truck. You're gonna do well, man. So keep it
Thank
going,
you.
okay?
Thank you.
I'm interested in your auto tech career plans. Are they teaching you repairs and technology on electric vehicles?
On electric vehicles, we haven't got the chance to start on electric vehicles. We've only been on gas powered. We haven't got any electric vehicles in, so I haven't, but I heard that because I'm planning on going to CNM once I'm done here at UNM, completing my course. And I heard that they're planning on getting an electric vehicle like a Tesla. So, you know, that it gives them an opportunity to also work on the electric cars.
Great. That's a great career. Everybody's got to have a car.
Thank you.
Mr. Vargas, could you touch a little bit on Innovation Lab? What is that?
The Innovation Lab, well, it's like a little lab that we have at our school that that we use mostly one of our teachers for science, which is Miss Dutchover. We use it, but we use it like, well, we, like how I said, we create our own things, like we have our own projects, and we'll go to that classroom in order to like be able to complete the project more better with more room. Mhm. Oh, and we have 3D printers too.
Thank you, Mr. Vanagon.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate the auto tech service that you're getting in education, you're getting there too, plus the business, so you're doing it right. You wanna own a business and do a career that's gonna make you some money. And I am very proud of you to bring up those, it's that fast in that term, that means your business, you've got something to do and you're gonna complete it. I'm proud of you, good job, and thank you for coming and talking to us today.
Thank you.
Dr. Kettler, other comments?
Members of the board, in a few weeks, I will make a more formal presentation concerning the process of the day plan, do that quarterly report we've talked about. But briefly this evening, I wanted to share with you an update. Interviews at school sites and site visits have nearly completed. There are two finish up with the week, one being Walldale Elementary and the other being Sundance Elementary. As I visited our schools, I've seen the many great things that our presenters have presented to you at every board meeting throughout. Our staff and our students are doing an amazing job each and every day, pre-K all the way through 12th grade. Today, I also began meeting with directors, starting with the innovation directors that fall under Dr. Elder. And as I finish up these meeting with directors in the next week or two, coordinators. So progress is being made on all of my interviews. I'm planning by the end of October to send a survey to all staff or employees, as well as the community. And so the information that I gained from those surveys will help me to create a more directed and specific set of questions. And from there, I will be attending a staff meeting at each school, even with the staff exclusively, no administrative presence, myself, I guess. And I will be holding two in-person community night events to get more face-to-face feedback, as well as probably a Zoom event online. There's still a lot of work to be done. Lots of meetings still to be had, but I am making progress. The goals of my 100-day plan, and I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you, Dr. Kettler. Gentlemen, any questions for the superintendent?
No, Madam President, I appreciate that you're getting down all the schools and getting to meet these people. That's going to be that's really wonderful. And also getting a survey to see how they feel they're doing in the district, which is important. And the fact that you're going to actually have two community events is wonderful. Thank you.
What else are you going to use that survey for? Did you say just for your own use, or is it something that you would be sharing with the board?
Themes that emerge from the survey will make its way into my presentation, whether it's the quarterly presentation in November, or it could be the next one could be in January. February.
All right, well, thank you. Of course, the information that Dr. Kettler has shared with us is informative only, and no vote is needed at this time. I believe that moves us on to what would be item number 10, which is the discussion and action to amend the policies. And I know there's also some students that might need to step out, and let's do about 5 minutes and let the people that need to step out, step out.
We're in the recess.
A couple. Do you need to go for recess? Okay, I'll take a 5-minute recess. Yeah. Oh, that was it. Oh, okay. He was in front of you.
Like a block.
Okay, let's call the meeting back to order. It's now 6:51, and we'll move on with the agenda. I believe we're on item 10, which is discussion and action to amend policies. Our first item up is section E. Support services. These were discussed originally at the September 12th board meeting. So they're back up for discussion tonight. We'll start with 10AI, which is section E 3900. We're gonna just talk about it. We're not gonna vote on it.
Oh, okay.
Okay? Is there some language change that we need to address? Okay, I'll turn it over to you to Dr. Kettler, and you tell me where we're going with this.
Madam President, members of the board, there were some questions specifically on E 900 and E 4050. When section E was originally discussed. And so the two outstanding policies, we've been waiting for council to advise us, that being Mr. Kennedy from the policy service And tonight, we have Ms. Santiago here, and I would like to call her to the podium to walk us through the recommended language of these two policies.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Kepler, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm going to start with copyright policy and review it just generally because I know that it's not a voting item today, but I want to explain the process that I went through in order to provide you with the recommendations that are in front of you. First of all, the policy itself, as it came from NMSBA, had some technology that is no longer current technology. And so the first thing that I wanted to do was bring it up to date. We don't rent videotapes from a video store. I don't know where the closest Blockbuster is. So I thought we should maybe take that out and just follow along with some of those other changes. I also think that copyright in and of itself and the sources from which teachers and others would probably draw is more like internet downloads and other kinds of software. So I wanted to make sure that it reflected that. I also know that there is no way possible that your policy is going to be able to reflect every type of access of every type of material that is copyrighted. And because it comes in all formats now, it comes on their phones, it comes on their computers, it comes at you from everywhere. So instead, what I did with this policy is I reviewed policies from different entities, other schools that didn't use NMSBA policies, other universities that also use a lot of technology, and created a more general policy. What you have in front of you actually, if you would take a look at page 1, 2, and 3, that is the revised version of the policy. At the bottom of page 3, where it says fair use, and from there all the way back to the very last page where it says violations at the bottom of the next to last page, all of that is the material. You can't see it here when it came through, but all of that is the material that is coming out. Because all of that material is specific to technology that no longer applies. So from the bottom of page 3, where the words fair use appear, all the way through to the very end, to the next to last page at the very bottom says violations. All of that material in between will come out.
The next page has employees in violation of the copyright will stay in.
That stays in.
Okay. So really it ends at performances, and everything under performances and violation stays in with the language that's after that paragraph.
It goes, Madam President, members of the board, the key issues are the school trademark. By the way, that was the other thing that we wanted to include in here, is just a reminder to everyone to use a trademark according to the trademark regulations. And then use of copyright material in educational settings stays in. And then what not to do stays in. Getting permission stays in. Below that is fair use. All of that comes out. And the policy as it existed, all of that strikeout material really is included in the first 3 pages under a description of what is fair use. For example, if you looked at the old language, you will see that under the books section, it already says that you can't use more than 1 chapter of a book. I just included it as a more general reference because books can be electronic books, they can be books from a library. So rather than designate them from specific locations, it became more general. I realize that board member Smith has some comment. I don't know if he's seen these changes or not. And I know that this is just for discussion for tonight. I just wanted to explain to you the process for the revisions that were made and why they were made in this fashion instead of, specific books, videotapes. We just don't use that in education that I'm aware of. We could probably ask the principal when was the last time she used a videotape and I think she would probably not even be able to remember. Right? Fair. Yeah. So I think your policies should reflect that.
Gentlemen, any questions on this?
I have a little bit of clarification.
Yes,
So
sir.
From fair use all the way to the end, everything
Everything, yeah,
is out.
is out, Correct.
Okay,
Except for violations.
except for violations.
wait a minute.
That's
Okay, the violation stays in.
Correct.
Okay, okay,
And it's that one paragraph.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
So my question would be, and maybe for Dr. Kettler, is it possible for us to put this back up? And let the public view what we're eliminating, which makes total sense why we're eliminating it. And if Mr. Smith has not seen a copy of it, that he of course get emailed a copy because we've got one here with us tonight. And then that way, when we bring it up again at the next policy meeting, which will be in November, we'll have had an opportunity for the public, staff, and or other board members to submit questions if they have them.
Madam President, we can post a clean version copy that has, it's the correct language.
With all that out
All of
already
it.
subtracted.
Yes, and Mr. Smith will receive a copy of that.
And you kind of brushed over trademark, but that was something we had to add in. So is this added language or was it already there?
No, Madam President, members of the board, the school trademark is the first reason why I made a comment about this particular policy, because other districts don't have it, and I thought this was the most appropriate place for it to go in the policy. So all of that language is added in. Also, Madam President, members of the board, I agree with Dr. Kettler, and I do think it would be a good idea to repost it simply because that is a significant change. And as you'll see, everything, all of the other policies also have significant changes. And so in the interest of, transparency, I do believe it would be a good idea to repost everything that I speak about today, the changes that I'm recommending today, just because I'm only one person. Other people may have more brilliant ideas. So it seems fair.
Or questions?
Or
Maybe not
questions.
Ideas, just questions as to what we've
You
done.
never know.
We've done it, okay,
So, Madam Chair,
yes.
if we were voting on this, this would have been second reading.
It would, because what we did at our last meeting in September was approve all of E. So all of E got approved in the policy except for these two. So this is like a third read, actually.
But since we're not voting on it, it doesn't
Right.
count as a read.
No,
So when it's posted, it needs to be like, these are recommended changes for the third read and whatever the proper number is. These are recommended changes
to the policy.
for consideration.
Okay.
But we have not agreed to it or disagreed with it.
Right, we're not voting on it. These are what has been presented as recommended.
Okay.
And yes, we can show that on the.
What is the date that we are supposed to vote on this then? Do you have that?
The next date? That would be the next meeting date of. What's our November meeting date?
November 28th.
Mhm.
We only have one meeting in November.
And it's.
Oh. 28th.
Yeah.
Is that the Thanksgiving week or is that the next week after that or? All right, I just need to get it straight. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hudon, did you have questions?
No.
Okay. With that, that's our discussion for 3900. Let's move on to section E 4250. Now this one, I guess could go discussion or vote, but there are some changes. So let's talk about this. Hitler, do you want me to go straight through the?
Madam President, we received an updated version of 50 this afternoon. The council, and so, based on that, we'll do that. And they're posting it similar to our Putting that under public review.
Madam President, members of the board, I actually printed a red line version of this so that you could see the changes. And I think it will help explain what I'm doing. So I'm going to step out from behind here and hand these over to you.
So the email that we have in front of us, is it the same you're handing us? But this doesn't have red line? Okay. Thank you.
A lot of red.
It's all red line. At least the first pages. Pages. Okay. Okay, go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, there is a lot of red line here. And let me explain why. The original policy that came from NMSBA was very limited. And your original policy, your original Los Lunas policy was actually a much better version of use of technology than the NMSBA policy. So what you see in the red at the very beginning of this policy is primarily your original, Los Lunas original use of policy language. It has been modified. It is not exact language. It has been modified and shortened in some way, in some areas, but I did think that your original language was better. The other thing that occurred as we were working through this policy is I've had multiple conversations with Mike Good, who's been very kind in terms of helping me understand technology and making sure that your policy as it is reflected here is something that is currently occurring at the district, that the language that is in there is appropriate for the current uses, and that is not tied so specifically to any type of technology that it can be used broadly across the district. So you will see at the very beginning, everything in red, the words in black there were the language that was added in by the technology department. Everything on the second page in red is your original policy, your original Los Lunas policy that was added into this policy. On page 3, you will see that that's where the two policies sort of start coming together. And that's where the NMSBA policy started, right there in the middle, where it says district issued email accounts, and there's black language below that. That is where the NMSBA policy started. Based on these conversations with the Los Lunas Technology Department, we made some additional changes to the NMSBA policy because it does not reflect the current use of the district. For example, in some smaller districts with lesser or with older technology or with lesser resources, the user, the individual who is assigned the computer, it's that user's duty to preserve the emails. You are fortunate here in Los Lunas that you have an IT service that creates backups. And so the end user, whoever is assigned the desktop or the laptop, doesn't have to go in there and try to preserve their emails for purposes of records retention. And the second part of this policy is addressed towards records retention as well. And it talks about originally the NMSBA policy put that onus on the end user. So everybody who's assigned a laptop was suddenly in charge of preserving records. That language didn't matter in Los Lunas because your technology allows for backup. At least that's what I understand from Mike Good. And if I'm wrong, you can come up here and correct me. So we took that language out of there in terms of putting the onus on the end user. The other thing that you will see on the next to last page is that we rephrased the NMSBA policy, and it'll say records retention there sort of in the middle of the page. This is the part of the NMSBA policy that put the onus on the end user to preserve emails and other communications. So instead, you will see here that the district will establish policies and procedures, and that puts the puts it back on the IT department to do what they're already doing, which is to preserve, backup all the communications and the emails. And all of those 4 bullet points that are there, make a policy, make it so that it's treated the same as paper, a retrieval system, all of that already exists, except for it's not done by the end user, it's done by the IT department. And then the last section of this that I want to bring to your attention is that it requires that users that they should be careful with their business communications. And the one item that I wanted to specifically draw your attention is the last sentence of that paragraph at the very bottom, which actually is on the next page. It says, no user shall delete any text message sent or received within the native text messaging application of any district issued phone, and default retention periods shall not be changed. I want to explain to the board what that means and why that is included in your policy. This is not original language from your original Los Lunas policy. This is not original language from NMSBA. This is included because of a new wave, I guess, if that's the right word, of IPRA requests that have been received not only in Los Lunas, but really fairly across New Mexico and across the United States. Text messages are now the way that some business is conducted. And when business is conducted over the text messages, if it has anything to do with the business of Los Lunas schools and it's on a school issued phone, then it should not be deleted. Now, the language in here is very specific, and it is done this way on purpose because there are, of course, other apps that can be added to the phone, and we're not addressing the other apps. And it doesn't require the district to engage in any kind of storage of those text messages, so that if they are on your phone and they fall off, then they fall off and they're no longer there. That's why that last line says the default record retentions will not be changed. That's not changed by the users. That means if your phone is set to keep the text messages, your district issued phone is set to keep the text messages forever, then it keeps it forever. If it's set for a year, then it keeps it for a year. This language is here to address those concerns across New Mexico, lawsuits that are currently pending. I know that the board itself has been subject to IPRA requests for their text messages, as have members of the cabinet. That's just part of what we are seeing now. And this language is to address that specific issue. It is for your discussion and consideration. And in my opinion, it is to protect the district from a lawsuit for deleting records if the text message has to do with the business of the district. That is a lot of information, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on this use of technology.
Gentlemen.
Madam President,
Go ahead,
I've just
sir.
got one question
Yes,
on if someone deletes a text message, how do you know?
That's a fair question. Member Bennett, Madam President, members of the board, that's a fair question. I don't know that you know initially if it's an IPRA request, but if there is a discovery request, the discovery request will show that a text message was received or sent. If they go to the company, the carrier, and issue a subpoena to the carrier, and the carrier can say there was a text message here sent or received here, and it wasn't produced, then we know that it was deleted.
But going through the carrier isn't what most IPRAs do.
No, that is correct, Madam President. Going through the carrier, we wouldn't know. In fact, if we were to get an IPRA and we would then go to the employee and ask them, or to the board member and ask them for the text messages from their phone, and they say to us, we don't have any. They say to the superintendent or to the records custodian, Mr. Baca, and they say, we don't have any, then we have to take you at your word at that point. But that is why the notification is here in this policy that says you're now on notice that you should not be deleting them because then it comes back to the district. We're still responsible. If someone files an IPRA and we say no record and they file a lawsuit and the lawsuit shows in discovery that there was a record, we're paying $100 a day.
So even though there could be a record, but no content.
Correct? Because then we have violated that policy. The opposite member Bennett is also true. If we have no policy, if we have nothing that says anything about our text messages and we don't turn them over and employees are still deleting them, we could still be in the same spot.
I'm sure. So on that same section, on the retention period, and maybe Mike would be able to answer this if you're not. What is the default retention period? And is a user able to change that, or does it have to be changed by tech?
So I want to clarify, I'm going to ask Mike to answer that question, but I want to clarify that when we're talking about records, retention period means two things. Retention period under the Inspection of Public Records Act is the period of time for which a business record must be kept. Nothing in this policy addresses that retention record. Nothing. And it purposely, because for public schools, it's very complicated and every piece of business documentation has a different retention record. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. We're not talking about that retention. I think you're only talking about the retention period on the phone, correct?
All right.
Mr. Vickers, opinions vary. When you search the internet, some say 30 days. Others, when we looked at our phones, come out as a year. And so I don't think that we can give any specific retention period because it appears to me to have varied over time. And not only that, but if we were to set and state what that retention period is, they can change it at any time. But generally, there are three settings. One is 30 days. The other one is a year. And after that, it's forever. That's what's currently available on the iPhones that we have.
So who sets that? The carrier?
There's a default so that, yeah, well, I don't know that the carrier sets it, but it comes out of the box. So it's
Okay.
unknown to us how that has been set.
So the user sets that.
No,
No.
it's not set at all.
So
There's a default setting on my phone, on John's phone, it was a year checked. But I did some research online briefly and I saw resources stating it was 30 days. So there you go.
So the second half of that question, not that I would do this, but just asking, can the user change that?
Yes, they have the ability to do so.
Okay. And then I have another question. So I'm still getting phone calls on my phone for dentist appointment or whatever from whoever had my phone before, or maybe before that. When we get a new phone, can that all be erased? Everything that was on it, all the text messages and everything prior to us being issued a phone? Can it be clean?
The first for me, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Kettler. So what you're experiencing is that we get phone numbers randomly chosen by our carriers when we get a new phone for somebody. So we don't, for instance, if you were to leave and you get replaced by another board member, we don't give that phone number to them. We just cancel that number.
Oh.
That number goes to the next person that T-Mobile decides to give it to. Excuse me. So there's absolutely nothing we can do about any phone calls or text messages that you receive from the previous owner of that phone number.
But is the phone itself like cleaned, you know, under this retention thing? Are all the text messages that were on that phone erased?
Yes, sir. Yeah, when we do anything, we give you a new phone or swap your phone like I'm about to do. The brand new phone, well, it's a brand new phone.
Okay.
And so I will be just copying everything that's on your current phone over to the new phone. But for a new person, they get a brand new phone. That phone is completely blank. The only thing what you're experiencing yourself is actually the previous owner of the number didn't tell the dentist or whoever that they got a new phone number.
Okay. That clarifies stuff. I thought it was always somebody out of the district that I was getting the calls
Yeah,
regarding.
no, it's
No.
just, that's the way the cell phone companies work. They recycle the phone numbers because there's only so many phone numbers in the world. And they have to recycle them.
So the text messages are stored with your phone.
Okay, so those are cleaned. They should have
don't
been,
exist.
like before my phone was issued, it should have had no text messages on record or whatever.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you would not have picked up any of their text messages from the previous owner.
Okay.
Any text messages coming to you are all brand new. And you know, nobody else can see them and when you leave and that number gets deleted, the next person to get that number won't see any of your text messages.
Okay, all right. Thank you. All I've got.
I want to make sure I'm on the same page with you guys on this. So can the district set up a default on the retention of text messages?
We have that capability.
Okay, so if we have that capability, should that mirror? This is going to be a question for our superintendent and our council. I don't know which one. Shouldn't that? Shouldn't that mirror each other?
So I don't know that it should be written into policy because that would be a regulation, which is how we're enforcing the policy. And so as superintendent, I could create a regulation that says we are setting our phones to delete messages after 30 days, which is one of the choices on the phone. And then that would go into regulation and that would be what any district user of a cell phone would follow. Or should follow. It does not mean, however, they cannot change the setting because we have no way, if I'm correct, Mr. Good, of locking someone out from changing their setting.
Without getting into managing the phones themselves, we would not have that ability.
So I guess my question, because this is a state statute, this is a policy. Maybe you can come up with a recommendation that you would want us to support. Because you're gonna be the guy answering the questions.
Madam President, members of the board, Mr. Hito, this is not a state statute,
No, it's not.
No, it's
just
not.
a policy.
just
It doesn't
a,
have any teeth behind it,
Correct.
but if he's gonna be answering the questions, I would like to have his input on this.
I agree.
My only question, and I think I heard the answer, but just to make sure, Mike, if we decide to do this policy where text messages are included for retention, whatever the phone application is, it's not going to affect data on your end. It's not going to clog up your system in any way, and you can get that information from IFRA without too much of a issue, I would assume.
Yeah, that's correct. The reason why this is very well written, in my opinion, is that it adds no additional load to our departments.
Okay.
With possible exception of discovery. So for example, if we want to do a discovery, then we need to have a process in place by which that individual's phone would be examined.
Right.
So we have, our department has not been involved in that at this point. But there has to be some sort of process for that. But outside of that discovery process, there's no additional load that this policy would add to our current operations.
The only other thing I would add is that, again, this is technology that is issued to all employees. This isn't something that's going to affect just the board or just the cabinet. This is going to affect every school board member or every school employee of Las Vegas schools.
the policy overall affects all employees, but not all employees are issued a district issued phone. So this would affect all employees who are issued a district issued phone, including board members are not employees, but if you're issued a district issued phone, it would include all board members as well.
I was getting that. Okay, thank
Got
you.
one more.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ricker.
Need to open this can of worms, but I need to know what the answer is. What about text messages, et cetera, on your personal phone that have to do with Los Lunas schools? Where does that, is this policy address that at all? Or is it addressed anywhere else?
Member Vickers, Madam President, members of the board, that question specifically has been addressed by the courts. And the courts have decided that if you are using your personal phone for a governmental agency business, that personal phone is subject to IPRA because it is the business communication of the agency. And so if you were to, for example, sit up here at the podium and be sending emails or texts on your personal phone, members of the audience would not know the difference between your personal phone and your district issued phone. They could IPRA that. And even if it's on your personal phone, if it concerns the business of the district, it is subject to IPRA. The email's very, very clear on the emails. Text messages, I will say, text messages fall into this very gray area where the law is in and of itself just developing. The emails, there is no question that emails on your personal email that relate to the business of your agency, your governmental agency, those are discoverable under IPRA and should be produced when requested. Text messages are a gray area. Text messages on your personal phone are a gray area. This addresses only text messages on district issued phones.
Thank you.
Handwritten notes also.
Really? Okay,
That's why.
Smoke signals as well.
okay.
So then my only next comment then would be, I agree that this has to go back up on the webpage for review by the public. Thank you, Mike. So that they can see what we're looking at proposing on a vote at our next. And then just to clarify, all the red wasn't being eliminated, it was being added.
Correct.
Okay, and the black within that red was added.
The black was the original, NMSBA policy that is currently in place for the district, and the red is being added from the original Los Lunas policy.
Okay, got it. All right, so we'll put both of those back up on the webpage for possible vote at our next meeting. Any more discussion on those two items?
Madam Chair, one
Yes.
more thing. So the red that's crossed out was out of our original policy or
Okay.
or what?
Member Vickers, thank you for that question. I know that's very confusing because the way I did this is on the red line program through Word that does the red line that tracks all of the changes. So the first 2 pages and a half, up to the point where it says preservation of district technology and related information, sort of like in the top half of page 2, all of that, above that is your Los Lunas policy. All the red below that is the edits to the NMSBA policy.
So then if you're mark wiping it out, it was the
NMSBA
that you're taking out.
That's right.
Okay.
If
Does
there's
that
a
help
strike through, I'm removing NMSBA language.
Madam President, members of the board, if I may, take this version, this day Santiago, and make it blue for new language,
Okay,
red stripe through for the old NMSBA language. That will be the version that gets posted to the website, and it can be shared electronically with the board. If that
Sounds good.
helps.
any more questions, Mr. Becker?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that takes us to item 10B, which is the section on personnel. I'll turn that back over to you also, Dr. Cutler, and
Madam President, we had the first reading of this policy at the September policy. And there were 3 specific policies in section G personnel that was recommended legal counsel examine community and ordinance de Santiago. Those 3 are G 3100, G 6100, and G 9300. G 3100 is professional support staff voluntary transfer of accrued annual or sick leave. This was a complete rewrite of G 3100, which we as a staff believe is in compliance with the law and with what we do in local schools. The state of Santiago can address that one before we move on to 6100.
Dr. Kettler, Madam President, members of the board, there is law that says that all employers should have a donation leave bank. I made just some minor changes in this version in your policy that would clarify who the first change is who is on the leave donation committee. If the superintendent decides that the leave donation committee is the same, that's fine. But these policies don't cover collective bargaining employees specifically. Collective bargaining employees are covered by the collective bargaining agreement. So I wanted to be sure to make that clarification. And I added language that says that this policy doesn't create additional rights separate from the collective bargaining agreement. And the purpose for that is I didn't think it would be fair or appropriate, or it's really for your consideration, but for an employee to use the leave donation bank under the CBA and then separately use the leave donation bank under the policy. It should not be it should not be 2 pockets where one employee can go to both pockets of leave donation. I understand that it is cumbersome to have 2 leave donation procedures. So the vast majority of it is left intact with the exception of the committee and the rights under the collective bargaining agreement being designated. And then one more paragraph taken out there, which makes it so that the decision of the superintendent under the policy is final, whereas under the CBA, it is not final. I will say, Madam President, members of the board, that the superintendent and I have not had an opportunity to discuss these policies. And so in fairness to him, it is my fault. I sent them to him very late today, and we have not, unlike the opportunity that I had to work with Mike Good, we have not had an opportunity to discuss this. So again, I recommend that these will be reposted again and that I have an opportunity to work with the superintendent on the review of these. But that's the changes to the leave donation policy.
Madam President, can I interject the 3 G policies out of section G that we're talking about? I would be certainly in favor of reposting. The remainder of G, I would recommend if the board is comfortable with the remainder of G, the exception of those 3 that those are voted on this evening. Keep our process of policy review moving forward.
So give me the policies that we would
Review.
yeah, that you gave them to me in the beginning and I didn't write them down. So I know it's G 3100,
G 6100,
6100,
and G 9300.
9300. So if there was a motion by the board, if they so wish, they can motion to approve the personnel policy section G with the exception of those 3 sections, if they choose. Okay.
That's 6100, 9300. What's the third one?
It's 3100, 6100, and 9300.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I will move that we approve section G personnel policy with the exception of section 3100, section 6100, and section 9300. Will be deferred to a later reading.
Madam President, members of the board, in fairness to Dr. Kettler, I looked at more than just those three policies. So I believe that the section that you have in front of you has more than those three policies with my revisions in it. I don't think it's fair to Dr. Kettler or to you that I not mention that the revisions that you have in front of you right now have some potential recommendations to other sections.
And these wouldn't have been.
These would not
talked
have been
about-
posted. And my apologies to Dr. Kettler. I know what he told me to look at those three specifically, but I looked at them generally overall to see all of the changes and the ones that you have printed in your packet right now. My recommended changes are in green and you will see that they are on more than those three policies. So in fairness to each of you and to Dr. Kettler, I recognize that you have a motion pending, Member Vickers, but I wanted to explain that before somebody had a second to it and before you've had a vote and a discussion on that.
Okay, I will withdraw that motion. I thought that Dr. Kettler was good, except for these three, so.
I don't think
My
that,
bad.
in fairness to Dr. Kettler, I don't think that I didn't give him enough time to look at all the remaining changes. And in fairness to Dr. Kettler, he did ask me to only look at those three. But as I was getting to those three, you look at the rest of the policy to see what it's doing, and I did provide additional recommendations. You could reject all the remaining recommendations that I sent in and not review them and approve them without. I would simply say that if you wanted to do that, your motion should be to approve them without my recommendations at this point because they have not been reviewed. It would be in fairness.
So would that be true, Dr. Kettler? You haven't reviewed
I
it.
have not.
So would you feel more comfortable?
So. Yes. Do you have a list of policies we touched?
I do. I do have them. I can tell, we can do it. I can tell you which ones I have touched and then we can approve everything else except for those. Is that your thought, Dr. Kettler?
How many are there?
It's 133 pages, but I didn't touch them all. Policy G 750,
What was the number?
G 750.
Okay.
G 1311.
These are big sections too, right?
Yeah.
1311 is a big section. Yeah.
It's. I would also recommend. Put it on the website for. Feedback.
Yeah, and again, my apologies to Dr. Kettler and to you, board. Dr. Kettler sent it to me with plenty of time. I didn't get to it with plenty of time for him and I to have reviewed it and gone back and forth on it.
And for the board's information also.
And for
Mr. Kennedy hasn't responded, and I think that Dr. Kettler had reached out to him for at least a whole week prior to even sending these on to council. So we are now relying on council to get us through these readings because of some personal issues that Mr. Kennedy is having. We've been on a pretty fast pace to get these policies completed by the end of the year. I wanted us to stay on the pace that we're operating on. So I have talked with Dr. Kettler and we decided that maybe let's have our council review them instead of waiting for some unknown time for the NSBA attorney to get to us. So with that having been said, that might be part of the reason for some of the delay. So there's what I'm hearing is there's been no motion for section G. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr.
Madam President, Council, what language you rather like to hear with your motion, table it or withdraw section G till the next reading?
I think it just gets tabled to the next.
Yeah.
Madam President, I would like to table section G at this time.
So I got a motion by Mr. Hidon to table G. We're tabling the other ones as well. It didn't do it in a motion. But I'm not opposed to doing it. We're under discussion. So just no action was taken is really more of the language we would do. But if you want me to do a motion, I don't think it.
Madam President, members of the board, when an item is on the agenda and no action is taken, you, as the board president, in conjunction with the superintendent, create the next agenda and you could put it on. So whether it gets tabled or no action is taken, the end result is the same. It just appears on the next agenda.
Okay, and we all agree that section G needs to be also reposted. So that as of right now, we've got 3 different areas that we're posting on our webpage for public review, for staff review. So that hopefully we can possibly approve it at the next time. All right, thank you. Okay, don't go nowhere. You want to withdraw your motion, Mr. Hidon, or did you want to continue with the table?
What do you want?
I think we could just let.
Withdraw my
Okay.
motion. We're just not ready to move on this.
On to section 10C, which is the NMSBA policy advisory updates from the 2022-2023 legislative session. There are 4 items that the New Mexico School Board Association sent us that were passed by the legislature during last year that are now law. And part of the service that we get from NSBA is letting us know what the law is and how we have to introduce it into our policies. I'll start with you, Dr. Kettler, if you'll bring up what we're looking at here under item C.
Madam President, members of the board. The 2023 New Mexico legislature adopted several new statutes and statutory amendments warranting the consideration of the following new or amended local school board policies. Specifically, A 350 is a new policy issued to comply with statutory amendments. Specifically, House Bill 7, which added sections to Chapter 24. The effect of which is to prohibit public bodies, including school districts, from discriminating against persons based on their use or non-use of reproductive or gender affirming care. And so A 350 is a new policy as a result of the statutory in House Bill 7. Also a new policy, A 400, Human Rights Act Protection Gender Identity. House Bill 207 makes changes to the Human Rights Act to add government agencies, including school districts, as among those who cannot discriminate against a person based on a wide variety of personal characteristics, including gender identity and gender. So again, this is a new policy issued to comply with statutory amendments. B 25 school board elections / holiday. House Bill 4 makes numerous updates and changes to the election code, including making every general and regular local election a school holiday. The provisions of this are effective January 1 of 2024. This, like the previous 2 policies, are new policy issued by the statutory amendments. E 3100 food services. Senate Bill 4 changes the name of the original act to Healthy Hunger-Free Students Bill of Rights Act, and amends the act to ensure free healthy school meals for all students and prescribe duties of the school districts and public education department. And so this corresponding regulation is updated accordingly. And then the final advisory update is policy J 1050, open enrollment, which we have not gotten to the entire section yet. But J 1050, open enrollment, is an amended policy to comply with statutory amendment Senate Bill 120, which clarifies provisions for military families would anticipate moving to any attendance area and allow the students who enroll in schools that in that attendance area prior to establishing residence.
So the question I have on this, council, is, these are law,
Yes, Madam
but
President.
we would want our public to know that these are gonna be added into our policy. So I would imagine we would have to put it up on our website for public comment, staff comment, or do we just approve it tonight?
It would not, go ahead.
Madam President, these have been posted.
Okay,
And
okay.
3 o'clock, they've been posted for about 2 weeks. And as of today, we have no input
Okay.
at 3 o'clock today.
Madam President, members of the board, I was going to say it would be good if they were posted, but they've already been posted. My only recommendation is that on policy A0400, you correct the spelling of identity in the caption. I think it would be good if your policies were spelled correctly. And also with regard to policy E3100, the accompanying regulation E3111, my recommendation is that the board does not adopt the regulation because as this board has already determined, the regulations are within the province of the superintendent. And we have accepted the NMSBA policy service without their corresponding regulation. This is a corresponding NMSBA regulation. So my recommendation would be that you not accept that particular regulation.
Madam President, that was a clerical error on my part.
Okay.
I'm not doing that regulation from the policy service.
So we've had it posted. There has been at least 2 weeks where it's been up online. It is now current law in the state of New Mexico in effect immediately, except for the one that goes into effect July 1st on the school board election holiday, July 1st of 2024. So with that having been confirmed, if any member wants to make a motion, I'll accept a motion for items C.
President, I have a question. You saw on that election day, is that the same as the national? Because now our school board election is the same as the national election. So is that a holiday already with us, or is that something that's got to be changed in our calendar year?
Member Bennett, Madam President, members of the board, I don't know if your school calendar already has that national election day in November as a day off or not. Also note that it becomes effective January 2024 so that your calendar committee would, if it's not this year already a holiday, it would be a requirement for the next coming school year so that your calendar committee could be aware of it.
Questions on this? Does any member want to make a motion?
Madam Chair, regarding these, don't we have to approve these with the proper readings? Or are we stuck with what the policy service gives us?
Good question. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the board, Member Vickers, these would fall within the regular process for approving your policies. You could decide 1 read, you could decide 2 reads. If you wanted this to go for 2 reads, then you would put it on your agenda for the next policy read. Because I do believe this is first read of these policies. So if you're following your regular policy and doing 2 reads, Member Vickers, this would be first read. And thank you for bringing that up because I was thinking that as well. This would be first read. If you wanted to do a second read, you would put it up for your
It's a
next.
state statute, right?
This is state statute, Member Hedon. However, what you have in front of you is not state statute. What you have in front of you is the district policy adopting the changes in state statute. So in reality, the board has very little room to move here because it's an adoption of the state statute so that you could incorporate it into your policy. But speaking from a practical perspective, in terms of adopting your policy, the process for adopting your policy, which is Member Vickers' question, 2 reads is your standard procedure so far.
So we can't delineate any language. The most we could do is add something if we wanted to in a procedural issue. but language that they've submitted is language we have to accept.
Madam President, members of the board, no, this is their simplification of a complicated statute. So this is NMSBA's reduced version of the actual duties that the school district would need to engage in order to comply with the new revised statutes. It's their version. If this board decided that they didn't exactly like the way these policies were worded, they could do exactly what they're doing, for example, on the E4250. Because what you changed in E4250 was the NMSBA's version of a compilation of different laws that apply to Open Meetings Act and IPRA and all sorts of other things. The same thing is true with these policies. This is NMSBA's summary of the law and how it's going to affect the school. I did read through it. I don't see any other recommended changes. The truth of the matter is, Madam President and members of the board, we haven't lived with this law long enough to know how it's going to be implemented and used and whether or not changes need to be made to the local policies at this point.
And that might be my next question is, did staff review? Is this going to bring any hardship to any department or cabinet that we haven't maybe considered?
Madam President, not to my knowledge.
The food service one or the student open enrollment?
I have visited with our student nutrition director about this and
Okay.
no.
Well, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I'm a believer in local control for school districts, and I'm not going to just automatically accept this at this point. So, yeah, if we want to make this a first read, that's fine. We can proceed with a second reading in November.
Any other board member want to feel the same way or feel differently, want to make a motion, or is it going to just
Well, Madam President,
go to second reading?
with the new policy, we don't necessarily need to go 2 readings, right?
It's correct, Member Vickers. I mean, Member Bennett, that's correct.
Unless you see something that doesn't need to be tweaked, we could.
Madam President, members of the board, my understanding from New Mexico School Board Association President Joe Guillen is that these will be going into our policy. What the board needs to decide is if they go in as written and recommended by the policy service, or if they're going to go in with changes that would be specific to those one schools.
Anybody?
So, Madam Chair, I move that we would defer this to the November meeting.
With no
And
action?
actually with no action tonight, especially since we're missing a board member. That this has a great effect on families and parents, and it needs to have a thorough hearing.
So I'm hearing from one member to call this a first reading, not to vote on this and pass it to the next meeting. Call it a second read in our November meeting. Anybody feel differently?
So motion.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay, so your motion is to table it.
Right. Not even, yeah.
So there's a motion
Just
to
table.
table. Okay. So I got a motion to table item C. All III, number 4. All 4 is the motion to table. The
We need
next
to-
meeting, Mr. Vickers?
The November meeting, right?
Okay.
The policy meeting.
What's the question from staff? Because I don't hear
And this table, that made the first read.
That is what I would prefer.
it. And this isn't the first read. It would be the next one.
Correct.
I have a motion that this would be just a discussion. First read would be in November. I need a second if it's going to move forward.
Well, Abbott, Madam President, I have a question. If we didn't really worry about pushing E&E, the E one, why can't we do the same in this one?
Madam President,
Yes.
council, I mean, I can see which way this is headed. We're gonna push this off, kick the can down the road. I'm all for local control. But this is state statute. What latitude do we have to change any of this?
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Cutler.
Can we make it more restrictive, more, I mean,
We, Los Lunas Board, you, members of the board, don't have authority to change the statute. That is clear, is outside of your authority. The question that I believe is coming from Member Vickers is that he wants to see if there's anything within the statute that would allow for more local authority, or perhaps changing or modifying this language in a way that reflects Los Lunas. I believe that procedurally, whether same with the policies that we moved off today, policies above that we just finished discussing, whether you take no action on them today or not, doesn't change the number of reads. This is still read number 1. If nothing happens at the next meeting, it becomes read number 2. If nothing happens again, then it becomes read number 3. It has come in front of the board for consideration and discussion, just like the prior 3 policies have come in front of the board. When we bring them in front of the board the next time, they're going to be labeled not first read, not second read, because then by then they'll be in front of the board 3 or 4 times. So with all due respect, I don't think it matters whether it's the first read or the second read. It matters whether or not the board as a whole is ready to move forward. If the board is not ready to move forward today because there are important issues, that's fine. Table it or not take an action. Either way, it comes up on the agenda the next time as a second read.
And the item is labeled as discussion and items. We always have that option. So if we don't agree, I don't think it has to be tabled. I think we just don't take any action on it. We put it up on the webpage again, make it out there a little bit longer, make sure that Board Member Smith has a copy of these new policies, the ones that are new and the ones that are being amended, and we bring it back in November. And if we're ready to vote in November, we vote in November. If we're not, then we're not. Because of the way we've been handling our policies, it's been pretty much at the will of the board. So we haven't really done a first, second read type thing. We've just been making the discussion of a policy and talking about it, making sure the public's aware of it, and then voting on it usually the next month. So I would agree, it doesn't need to be tabled, but that's not my motion. That's Mr. Vickers' motion. So Mr. Vickers, are you staying with your motion to table item C?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a motion to table item C. Do I have a second? Not hearing a second, it dies before a vote. Do I have any other motions to be considered by the board? So no action is going to be taken on item number C, 1, 2, 3, or 4. That brings us to item number D.
And I have a question.
Yes.
This was handed to us and we're at, I don't know, 6 months out from it became law. Are we going to see things like this happen regularly, or are they done for this past legislative session?
Member Vickers, members of the board. They sent this in August, right around the transition time to me coming in to Los Lunas School as superintendent. I held on to it. My plan was the September meeting, but I didn't get it out for the September meeting. And so here we are in October, and this is why it's been up on the website and you have it now. They send out one policy advisory per year, and that usually occurs 4, 5, 6 months after the legislature ends, so that they can craft the policy language based on the statutory changes. So there should not be, if the question was, will there be any more changes? Not for this year.
Okay.
Next time they have a policy meeting, state legislature session, yeah, we will do for changes. But that will be after.
So I guess one last question for council. If we chose not to adopt any of these policies, what would happen?
Member Vickers, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Kettler, the law still applies. So then, if there's any allegation of any violation of the statute, then you don't have a policy that applies, but the statute would still continue to apply to Los Lunas Schools as a governmental agency subject to the statute as it's worded. And I believe that you're referring specifically to A 350 and 400. I don't know about B25. That's the holiday, and E3100 is the food service issue. So I believe your question is directly to those first two, correct?
Yeah, mainly, but I'm sure there's lots of statute that's not in our policy. Right? Lots of various statutes that the schools are subject to and the teachers are subject to that isn't in our policy. Correct.
Member Vickers, Madam President, members of the board, that's true, because otherwise your policy would be, I believe the statute is now at 23 volumes of paper.
But the statute is for schools. The law reads for local schools to do something.
Correct.
So if New Mexico School Board Association makes a recommendation to an advisory of what the law is, it pertains to school districts.
Correct.
So the only laws that we're putting into our policy are laws that pertain to school districts.
Well, Madam President and members of the board, the reason that the advisory has come out to school districts is because the NMSBA Policy Service, through their attorneys, have determined that the new statute is pertaining most particularly to public schools. So for example, there were other changes in the law that had something to do with the tax code, and you're not going to see any advisories here regarding the tax code because it may or may not apply. But it's not as impactful on a public school as this. That's the service that you pay for through NMSBA. They take the statutes that pass, they assess it, they analyze it, and then they provide these recommendations to public schools because in their opinion, based on their legal counsel, they believe that it is beneficial to the public school to have this type of policy. Yes, there are laws that are not on the public school policy that still apply to public schools, but this is the service that you're paying for when you sign up for NMSBA Policy Service. Yes.
I want to make sure we're good on this. We sat in this room, Mr. Kennedy was at that side of the room, and he explained to us the difference between policy and state statute. We met in May. And I don't think you were there that day, but they explained to us the difference between statute and policy. And I think you're getting them confused, but in fairness to the board, what red flags are you seeing in these state statutes so that we need to be prepared for our next meeting? Because it's real vague what you're conveying to us.
Well, I'm seeing red flags where parents aren't involved
On state statute?
on these issues.
So can you tell me how us as a board, when we're mandated by the state, are we going to get engagement from our district to the state statute level, to the legislature?
I don't know how it would come out. I just know that we're responsible to do what is in the best interest of the district and the parents specifically of this district. And that's what I want to make sure is covered.
I understand, but on this agenda item, we're discussing policies. Okay, and we had our superintendent bring forward mandated state statute. So I don't understand, I don't know what mechanism we have as a board to include the parents at the state legislature level. Under this,
I guess that's what we can explore between now and November.
okay. Thank you, Madam President.
So one is under non-discrimination and the other one is under human rights. So I think that state statutes, they're probably override, but there's probably some federal statute in there too, I'm assuming. So, but okay, let's read it. Let's discuss it more. Let's bring it forward at our next meeting. And I think we should move on at this point. All right, so now we're going to discussion and action to look at section H, which is negotiations, which is item D of our agenda. Dr. Peck.
President, members of the board, this section from the policy service was length section intended for local agency education agencies to third how they will negotiate or bargain with their employee units. And so there is some very basic language that is presented there. I would much appreciate council's opinion to make sure that we are not missing important language in terms of the legal reference. It's listed there also.
So this would be a brand new section H because it's, well, the language under section H is brand new because there was nothing there before.
Correct. If you go to the policy service, there is no section H.
So this is completely brand new language. So this would be the first time we've seen this. This is our first item up under what was calendar we were trying to follow. So I think we continue to work with Roxy on our policies because Mr. Kennedy is not okay. So I guess we need your review of section H.
Madam President, members of the board, I have reviewed section H and I have no recommendations to it. I recognize that again, we're at first read. The statement that is drafted here for section H is very general. It complies with the law. If you have a collective bargaining unit, a collective bargaining representative, it is the duty of the district to negotiate in fairness, and that's what's already included. So in the spirit of keeping up with what you've done all night, this is a first read. And if you wanted to keep that policy, that practice going, then you'd move it off to a second read. But I don't see anything here that I would recommend any changes on at this time.
Has this already been posted?
This has also been posted for about 1 week.
Okay, so we'll leave it up. Okay,
That's correct.
all right. Section E, or item number 10E is section I, which is the instructional program. I'm assuming this one might be a little bit bigger.
Members of the board, you have in your packet of information a table with the policy number, the policy title, and the recommended changes from the staff. This too has been posted on the webpage. We have not received any input from the community. Starting with I-200, school day. Recommend delete bullets and replace with 1,040 instructional hours as defined by NMPTP. There is an updated reference to this. Also. That needs to be included. In those instructional hours being.
Pardon?
Yeah.
So we're following your outline and going through the policy on this one.
Correct.
Continue.
President and members of the board, we will just. Or I will just share with you ones that we are recommending changes to.
Okay.
Policy I-1250, basic instructional program. Bullet 1, daily instruction to ensure all NMPE standards are taught each school year in ELA, math, and science. For sub bullets 1 and 2, combine those into fine art. Delete from sub bullet 3 a language other than English. And for sub bullet 4, just keep that sub bullet. For bullet 2, daily instruction to ensure all MMPED standards are taught each school year in ELA. Sub bullet 3, read daily instruction to ensure all MMPED standards are taught each school year in math. And remove bullet 4. We are recommending replace the high school section with the graduation requirements. I-2400, special instructional programs and accommodations for disabled students. Change the title to students with disability. For I-2500, at-risk, disadvantaged students, student assistance team, change the 9 to 18 weeks to this process not delay an evaluation for a student. Change promotion to double promotion. Double promotion and retention are mandatory functions of the student assistance team. In the last 2 bullets, remove 18 weeks. This allows us to keep the guidelines broad enough so that when they change again, we're not revisiting and rewriting policy every time they change. I-2550 programs for pregnant parenting students. That simply delete the number of days in the fourth paragraph.
What's been deleted then?
The number of days.
For excused absences?
Yes,
Okay. So we're just not gonna put any restriction in it.
correct.
Okay.
I-3000 homebound. Recommends removal since remote learning is now available. Therapies would be provided for a student's IEP.
So you're gonna take out the whole,
Take out the entire homebound instruction I-3000. And this is addressed in other ways. This would, however, which we have not got to section J yet on students, require an update to JHD.
so this is covered under another section. Okay, got it.
I-45.
JHD stands for what?
It's in the section on students. I could not give you the number of that policy
Oh,
this time.
okay, all right,
So we're in section I, but he's saying that is addressed under section J.
okay, okay.
So we're gonna, the recommendation is to remove the whole thing. Okay.
That's correct. Okay, I-4550 class size. Regular education, that is okay. However, under special education, individual education program is in the policy service, not capitalized, and that should be capitalized. Same thing on I-4700 students get course loans. Individual education plan. I-5250 instructional resources in the field. The 5th paragraph deletes the last sentence. The 5th paragraph. And replace with materials that are available digitally will be acceptable to parents.
Not the film.
Correct. And then delete the entire last paragraph. Start with parents of learning. won't be available electronically. I-6500 field trips. Remove. And shall be limited to a distance of not more than blank miles away from school. Which is the second paragraph.
So you're
Transportation.
just taking out that whole part.
That first, so it would read, in general, field trips shall be conducted within the normal school day, period.
Okay.
Transportation determines what buses are available, and based on that schedule, how far they can go.
Okay, and that's why you're saying you're covering it under the regulation portion.
Correct. I-6700 grading assessment systems. Remove the timeline and replace with grading period. I-6800 report card progress report, capitalize IEP. I-6950 grade adjustments. Change records custodian to school administration. I-7100 class ranking / grade point averages. First bullet, replace first semester of the 9th grade with the first courses completed for high school credit. We have,
And that's how we're doing it now.
yes,
Okay,
that is great. We have multiple students who may take Algebra 1 as an 8th grader for high school credit.
Okay.
So the way the policy currently reads does not recognize this. And I-7350 graduation requirements. So the graduation requirements are listed there on that table for you to review.
yes.
These are listed in statute. Correct, I mean, so if statute changes from year to year, we have to change this.
Correct. Yeah, if there. Member Vickers, if there are any changes to graduation requirements by the state legislature, they would have to be updated in the policy.
And the only other thing I see that you didn't mark out is under graduation requirements, it says in 2009 to 2010. So I think we take out the year there. Or where's the year important bit? Would be on the first page of graduation requirements, the bottom of the page for students entering as 9th graders. Right. Specific graduation requirements. Oh, okay. So you leave those years in there.
Unless it's changed. I believe it has. Change that.
I-7351 State of New Mexico Diploma of Excellence. State seal of bilingualism by literacy. This is an additional policy for Los Lunas schools previously passed by the board, which I believe is in blue under that, under the table.
So this one we've approved and it gets inserted in there. This was already done.
Yep.
This was the language from the first time we did it. Okay.
So it's insert into the policy service. ICE 7750, use and dissemination of test results. Eliminate last paragraph and replace with parents must be provided with interim and state test result reports at the parent-teacher conference immediately following test administration. And I-8350 flag display. Change to governor's orders. I don't approve flying the flag at half-staff. That comes from the governor or the president of the United States.
So the whole paragraph comes out and you just put in the language for governor's orders? Or does the
No flag is to be flown at half-staff unless approved by
the governor? Okay. Okay.
So Madam Chair, for instance, on 7750. Parent/teacher conference, well, actually. Parents must be provided. Should we not have parent/guardian? In almost every case where you have parent listed. There's a lot of kids being raised by grandparents or whatever, so.
Yes, Member Vickers, you are correct. That person who has legal guardianship would appear in Power School, parent 1 or parent 2. But we can add that language. It doesn't.
Yeah, correct.
And this is on the webpage, and this was staff's recommendations that you gave us today.
That is correct.
And there weren't any parental or public comment? Okay. Okay,
Madam Chair. It's staff recommendations and you're signing off on it. Is that correct?
Member Vickers, that is correct.
final passage next month, if that's where it goes, will we have a clean copy of the deleted language and what we're adding?
Madam President, yes. The policy service like to have the red line and full language so that conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. If there's no more discussion, that will take us to section L, education agency relations.
For this section is currently on Roseland School website or inputs. Staff have had limited time of about a week to look through these policies. At this time, there are no recommended changes from staff to section L, with the exception of L 900. The North Central Association of Colleges and Schools is no more. It is Cognia, but rather than put a specific entity into the policy, we would recommend saying that New Mexico Public Education Department recognize accreditation. So the policy would read, it shall be the policy of the board to seek the highest status of membership for its school in the or by the New Mexico Public Education Department recognized accreditation. Now, I will caution this. We have not gone through an accreditation process in Los Lunas schools for at least 5 years or so, maybe longer, 9 weeks in, and I do not, I would caution that we hastily go into an accreditation process if we're not ready for that. And if we put it in policy, we're going to have to do it. I think as a general rule, the accreditation process is a valuable one because it looked at all of our systems academically and others, educate instructionally, and can provide us a lot of information. And the accreditation, I believe the accreditation, if we are accredited, it can be a marketing tool for the district to groups like Meta when they're hiring employees.
Would an easy fix change from shall to may?
Say that again.
Instead of saying it shall be the policy, could it be it may be the policy until we get to a time frame where we might begin some type of accreditation process? Not make it a requirement right now, just say eventually we can.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a suggestion.
Okay with that.
So maybe put that language, verbiage in there so that we can look at it, when we talk about voting on L. Okay, so for staff and for public, for board members, thank you very much for working with us to get these policies, reviewed and discussed. This is a very aggressive schedule. I know your staff, Dr. Kettler, has worked really hard on all these policies to give recommendations to the board, which we wholeheartedly appreciate. We can't do this without you. I know it's a big undertaking and it's required a lot of work staff. So I personally want to thank them for taking some time to work with you to give us these recommendations, because I would also imagine you wouldn't want us willy-nilly telling you how to do these either. So I think that it's really important that we get the comments from your staff and the government. So thank you for that. And again, board members, I know this is aggressive, but this is what we said we wanted to do when we wanted to get policies done and reviewed by the end of the year. So we're on track to do it. It's a lot of work. Please review the policies we've reviewed tonight. Be ready at the next meeting. And of course, I'll look forward to any public comment on any of these topics that we've discussed tonight. Is there any other discussion on these policies? Okay, that brings us to item 11 of our agenda, which is the work plan for policy review in November. Go ahead, Dr. Kettler.
For the members of the board, we have section J, which is students, and section K, school community relations left, to have a first read, followed by however that plays out. I recommend we bring those in November to the board. Now we have 2 meetings left. 3 meetings left. We have 1 in November and 1 scheduled for December. It may be beneficial to add a second meeting, which would be off schedule in December. You want to get through these remaining policies, because if you only have a first reading in November and then vote to approve in December, you won't have had a second reading.
Well, the December would be the second.
The second, yeah.
So we could
You
technically
could.
get it in there. It's just gonna also depend on what kind of feedback we get from staff, from cabinet, from you, from legal. Are those big
They
policies?
are, yes, they are large.
Okay.
Very large.
Well, let's see where we go. If we have to add a meeting, we can always talk about adding it in November. We can talk about where to put it, whether it's in November or December. It looks like it might be more in December, but we can talk about that at that meeting. So our next, well, that gets us to the calendar, but for right now, any other comments on the work plan, on what we're trying to accomplish to get sections J and K done?
When do you foresee posting J and K for the public and the staff to see?
This week.
So we're October, then we'll have, we can get it done. We just have to be prepared.
But it's a lot. Like tonight, we're still here. Thank you. All right, so this is for informational purposes only. No action is needed or warranted at this time for the work plan. That brings us to item number 12, which is new business. Gentlemen, I'll ask you at this time if you have any topics that you would like to see discussed at our next meeting. We'll cover the schedule here in a minute, but our next scheduled meeting is on October the 24th. Are there any items you'd like to see me put on the agenda? Okay, not hearing any, please reach out to me as quickly as possible. So if you think of something, I can add it. That takes us to item number 13 for announcement of meetings. As allowed by the Opens Meeting Act and the District Open Meetings Resolution, on occasion, a quorum of the board members attend the same function, including those held at school sites at the district level, as well as sports, functions, and community activities. Board members will refrain from discussing and or acting as Las Cruces School Board of Education issues at those settings. In addition, only official meetings are published, and if other meetings are scheduled, they will be announced in accordance with the Opens Meeting Act. With that having been said, these are the following meetings. On October 11th, which is tomorrow, the New Mexico School Board Association is having a Region 4 fall meeting. This is hosted by the Albuquerque Public Schools. We will be in Albuquerque at the Bonifacio Professional Development Center from 5:30 to 8:30. A quorum will be in attendance. On October 17th, there's a Finance Committee meeting here in the Central Office Boardroom at 3 p.m. On October 17th, there's an Audit Committee meeting also here at Central Boardroom. This is by invitation only, and that's at 4 p.m. And on October the 24th, we have a work session. We're going to be talking about the quarterly report for the superintendent on his 100-day plan, goals, and the evaluation plan. This is discussion only. It will be here at Central Office Boardroom at 4 p.m. No action will be taken. On that same day, on October 24th, we will go into a closed session at 5 p.m. Regarding limited personnel, specifically to discuss and regarding an addendum to the superintendent's contract. This is pursuant to 1015-1H2 of the Open Meetings Act. A quorum will be in attendance, again, 5 p.m. on the 24th. Also on October 24th, we'll go into our regular board meeting here at the Central Office Boardroom at 6:00 p.m. This leads us to the adjournment of the meeting. Before I call for adjournment, I don't know if we have to sign anything. Please check with the staff before you leave. And for that, I will stand for a motion to adjourn. I got a motion by Mr. Bennett. Second by Mr. Hidon. Any discussion on adjournment? Mr. Hidon?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Meeting is adjourned, 8:30. Thank you.